Okay, it was not a very complicated watch week. So I started off with the obvious thing that I said I would, and that's Amagami SS Part 2. And I guess it slightly defied expectations a bit more, and I think I came out of it with a pretty good high opinion. Not necessarily of all the girls. You can call me picky or whatnot, but, you know, it wasn't actually, the relationships there weren't so bad. I guess they kind of got off to a strange start by starting out with the weirdo, for lack of better terms. And that made me kind of unsure what to think about it then. But now that I've finished it, I have to say, I really do respect it a whole lot as a true gal game anime, where it literally, takes every path and, it's like every time the anime restarts or every time the new story arc starts, it restarts from the premise of, oh, he got stood up 2 years ago, but it covers everything differently. There's still the main overall events, but it's not as repetitive as you might expect it to be. And let's see, there are 2 specials on it, but one of them is considered the 25th episode of the series, and the other one is considered a true special by sites that make differences, or that differentiate between them. I guess because one of them got shown on TV and the other one was only ever shown with the DVDs or something like that. And those were actually pretty neat too. Kind of covering a couple of loose ends actually that the series left. Anyways, ow, sorry, headache. After that, I decided I was going to finally watch The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, Neuron Churia-san. And now I kind of understand why that title has always looked so complicated. It's because it's actually 2 different series. The 2 DVDs cover all of them. Each one has the first half of, each one has half of each of the series. So there's The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, and then there's Neuron Churia-san, and they are both completely available on those 2 discs, which made me quite happy. And watching them, they were actually quite amusing. I guess I don't really have much else to say. They are what they are, and that is amusing. And if you're a fan of the dub, the good news is they have it both Japanese with subtitles and in the English dub, so you get a nice consistent experience across all of your Haruhi Suzumiya watching experience. Let's see, somebody on Reddit mentioned Venus Wars, so I decided to go ahead and watch that. It was interesting. It kind of reminds me somewhat of Akira. Maybe that's just the time frame that it came out, but I don't know. It was interesting. I can't really think of a whole lot else to say about it. I can kind of get a vague impression why Akira took off as this important thing and it didn't. But at the same time, Venus Wars has some pretty good animation in it, and a kind of similar story about bike punks being important to everybody. Ow. Although not quite in the same way as Akira. And Akira kind of, again, I compared it to, but that's only because when I watched Venus Wars, I thought of Akira. Oh well. And I've decided, since I'm having trouble, since I don't want to focus on anything, it's finally time for me to resume trying to get more Pokemon out of the way. And I watched DVDs 2 through 8 and the first 2 episodes on DVD 9 of Pokemon Season 7. So I'm almost through all of that. I think a lot of my opinion has not changed, as in, like, May and Max are still pretty annoying characters to have along. But one thing I noticed is that Ash is actually pretty cool. I mean, when you go back to the first season, remember Ash Ketchum at the very beginning of the series, he's this whiny, easy-to-provoke kid. And I come to realize that in a lot of Pokemon Season 7, at least, he's actually been really a lot more of a mentor. He's really calm most of the time. It's like there's this one episode where he's lost in mist and he sees a ball toy and it's kind of heading towards a cliff. It didn't see it was there, and so he has Pikachu stop it. You know, he can't stop it with an electric attack because it's ground, so he uses quick attack to knock it over. And then when the trainer comes and is very accusatory of him, he's actually very calmly saying, "Sorry about that. I just didn't want your ball toy to fall down the cliff." You know, and he hasn't always completely been like that, but I've noticed that more often than not, that's what he seems to be like, and that's actually kind of neat. There's also, okay, so one of those episodes was really, really, really stupid. Let me see. It was a town where everybody is really into the Pellberg City Gym Leader, and May and Max are, of course, his kids, so they were really into them, which isn't a problem. It's an interesting concept, but then the entire town decides they're going to be assholes to Ash. And, you know, I talk about some of the highlights of Pokemon series, for me being when Ash kicks ass, and that episode actually suggests how much of a good trainer he actually is. The series doesn't like to really show you a whole lot, but here he is in this town, and all these people hate him, and they keep challenging him one after another. And he keeps winning over and over and over and over. It gives the impression that he must have won something like 4 dozen battles in a row. To the point where he and his Pokemon are all just exhausted. And then, of course, he has to fight May, and the town kind of gives her an unfair advantage by, you know, being one-sided. But, okay, so that's pretty much all of that episode in a nutshell. But it's Pokemon. There's 600 more episodes where that came from. You probably don't care too much, but that one was interesting because they never really directly showed a lot of this stuff, but it gives a real hint that Ash really is a good trainer. So it kind of makes listening to the opening over and over not as annoying. They're usually annoying because they're like, "I have a dream to be the best there ever was," and it's like, you've been singing about that for 7 years now. You're starting to sound more like some pathetic person living in the basement saying they're the smartest person in the world. They'll just realize it sometime soon. Oh well. Anyways, that's pretty much what I watched this week. I have no clue what I'm about to do because I've got some really good stuff on DVD, but some of it is stuff that somebody else wants to watch, other people want to watch, and I know some of the stuff I've ordered, and it's all so confusing. But I'll figure it out and watch whatever, like I always do. So I'll see y'all next week.